Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring a question that feels intensely personal, but also pretty universal. How do you find the right creative medium for you?
That's right. We've spent some time sifting through, a collection of notes and excerpts that really zoom in on this practical challenge.
Yeah.
It's less about the big why of creativity maybe, and much more about the how to translate that inner urge into an outer form that actually fits your life.
So our mission today is, well, to unpack these sources, pull out the most actionable insights we can find, and help you move from just thinking about creating to actually finding a way to, start doing it.
Finding where that creative energy can genuinely flow.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive in then. The sources immediately challenge a common assumption, I think,
Yeah.
which is that you're looking for some single perfect medium you're destined for forever.
Right, like the one.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality they describe is much more fluid. It's about discovering a medium you can actually practice consistently, one that genuinely aligns with your life as it is right now.
And getting to that alignment starts, perhaps surprisingly, not by looking at what famous artists do, but really by looking inward.
Yeah, the sources really emphasize starting with self-reflection and just simple curiosity.
Hmm.
And what's fascinating here is how simple the starting questions are. They aren't asking you to define your whole artistic mission statement or anything.
No grand pronouncements needed.
Not at all.
Yeah.
They're asking, what do you already enjoy doing? Like, what naturally captures your attention throughout the day? What activities feel so immersive, you kind of lose track of time?
Right. It's about following the existing currents in your own life. If you find yourself automatically doodling while you're on the phone, maybe sketching is a natural entry point for you.
Or if your journal is already overflowing with thoughts, perhaps writing is calling to you.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're always messing around with sounds on your phone. Could be something there for you in music or audio design.
And they go a bit deeper, too, don't they? Beyond just the activity itself.
They do, like asking, what kind of problems do you genuinely enjoy trying to solve? Or even, what kind of beauty do you find yourself consistently appreciating? These questions can point you toward mediums that resonate on a deeper level than just a surface hobby.
Okay, so you've done some reflecting, maybe jotted down a few ideas that spark some curiosity.
Huh?
What's the very next step then? The sources seem crystal clear on this.
Absolutely. Start small and try whatever is most accessible to you right now.
No need to break the bank immediately.
No. The focus at this stage is purely building momentum. It's not about requiring a huge financial investment or some elaborate setup. You really don't need a dedicated studio or expensive software to just begin exploring.
They give some great examples of truly accessible tools, too, like just a simple pencil and a notebook you probably already own.
Or the voice recorder app that's built into your phone. Super easy.
Yeah, or free online tools for graphic design, but they mention things like Canva or GIMP or even Tinkercad for 3D modeling.
Your phone camera. Incredibly powerful for photography or quick videos. Even, interestingly, things like spreadsheets or flowcharts can be creative mediums if you're into complex storytelling or designing systems.
The initial phase is just pure exploration. It's low stakes.
Totally. And the sources capture this perfectly with this line. I really like this. You're not committing to one medium forever. You're just going on a few creative first dates.
I love that framing. It just takes off so much pressure, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Because as the sources point out, there's a real trap here. Delaying, starting until you feel you can do it properly or buy the right equipment.
Oh, yeah, the perfect setup fallacy.
Exactly. And that delay, they suggest, often isn't really about practicality at all. It frequently masks a fear of imperfection, that fear of not being good enough when you actually start.
Which is fascinating because, as the sources remind us, practically every master started out as an amateur, often with really basic tools.
And sometimes working within those constraints can actually be incredibly clarifying. It forces focus.
It does. They even offer a practical technique for this initial exploration phase, the 3-session rule.
Ah, yeah. If you're curious about a medium, try engaging with it at least 3 different times.
Okay.
And crucially, try doing it when you're in 3 different moods. You might be surprised how your state of mind affects the experience, how it feels.
That makes a lot of sense. You might feel totally different about, say, drawing when you're energized versus when you're trying to unwind after a long day.
Precisely. And speaking of your life state, a really critical piece of aligning your creativity is matching the medium to your actual life context.
Right, because different creative forms demand different amounts of time, money, space, mental energy.
All of that. And the sources frame this not as a limitation or a barrier, but as the specific context you need to work within. It's about collaborating with your reality, not fighting against it.
So asking yourself realistically, how much time do you actually have each week to dedicate to this? Is it 15-minute bursts or do you have longer blocks?
Yeah. And do you crave something quiet and solitary, or maybe something more expressive and potentially messy?
Do you prefer digital tools that are easily portable? Or are you drawn to a hands-on activity that might need a fixed space?
Can this fit into your commute, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Or your evening wind-down routine? Could you even do it while multitasking, perhaps?
And if you only have, say, 30 minutes a week, the sources really stress this. That is absolutely enough.
Totally enough. The key is that the medium feels attainable within your current life, not like adding another stressful job to your plate.
Ah, that's important.
And there's a philosophical trap they mention here, too, this idea of romanticizing a medium based on some aspirational identity that just doesn't fit your current lifestyle.
Ah, yes. Like dreaming of being an oil painter with a huge, airy studio when your actual life involves, I don't know, a tiny apartment and maybe young kids.
Exactly. In that case, maybe making audio sketches on your phone or doing quick digital collages is the more realistic, sustainable fit right now.
The sources say aspiring is fine, but don't let that aspirational identity sabotage your actual consistency. That's the key.
And to help navigate that feeling of, is this just hard because I'm new, or is it actually a bad fit? They provide a really helpful distinction, telling the difference between red flags and growing pains.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. What's the difference there?
So red flags are signals that this medium might be a genuine mismatch for your core energy, for who you are. These include things like constant dread before starting,
Ooh, okay.
pervasive boredom during the activity, or like a profound sense of relief when it's finally over, like, thank God that's done.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a pretty clear signal something's off.
Uh,
What about growing pains then?
Growing pains feel different. They might involve tension, maybe frustration with your own perfectionism, or just simple fatigue from concentrating. But crucially, these feelings eventually fade or transform into something else, like curiosity, a desire to figure it out and improve, or maybe just a quiet sense of satisfaction afterwards. It's discomfort that comes from stretching yourself, not from a fundamental misalignment.
That distinction is incredibly clarifying, actually. And here's where the sources give us that really powerful summary sentence.
Yeah, it's great. If it drains your soul, it may be a mismatch. If it drains your ego, it may be an edge worth growing into.
That gives you a real compass, doesn't it?
It really does. And part of finding that fit involves understanding that different types of creation have distinct qualities, different tools, and even different psychological benefits. The sources offer a helpful breakdown here.
Yes, they categorize them. Let's see, there's tactile creation, that's things like working with wood, clay, textiles like embroidery or knitting.
Often described as grounding, very sensory, and maybe meditative.
Then auditory music composition, sound design, maybe spoken word performance.
Emotional, expressive, good for creating atmosphere.
Visual forms like drawing, painting, photography, film.
These tend to feel intuitive, playful, often focused on aesthetics.
Verbal creation, writing, poetry, scripting.
Often more reflective, logical maybe,
Yeah.
and very directly expressive of ideas.
And finally, digital forms, things like graphic design, 3D modeling, animation, even programming.
Yeah, these are often modular, highly remixable, easily shareable, lots of flexibility there.
And the suggestion is to maybe try mediums from different categories just to see what kind of energy exchange happens for you.
Exactly. Does it feel like it gives you energy, or does it tend to take it away?
Mm.
And they emphasize, too, that many creators aren't strictly just one thing. They're often hybrid creators,
Right.
combining, say, audio and textiles or writing and code. Your unique combination is just part of discovering your own creative fingerprint. It's not about fitting neatly into one box.
Okay, now let's talk about maybe the biggest obstacle for most people trying to start something creative. Time. Or more specifically, time guilt.
Oh, yeah, that feeling.
It's so common, and it seems deeply tied to our sort of Western linear view of time, where if you miss a day working on your creative habit, you feel like you've completely failed, fallen off the wagon.
Broken the chain, yeah.
Yeah.
All that pressure.
But this raises an important question the sources challenge us with.
Mm-hmm.
What if we rethink time itself? They propose imagining time not as a straight line you can fall off, but more like a circle.
A loop.
Yeah, a loop, where every day, every week, every month is just a new opportunity to simply return to the practice.
I love that reframe. It's like hitting pause on a loop,
Yeah.
not stepping off a cliff entirely. You didn't fall off, sources say. You just paused the loop. Now it's time to return to the circle.
Hmm.
And this connects to a bigger picture, doesn't it? There's a philosophical note in the sources referencing indigenous and Eastern traditions that often embrace a more cyclical view of time,
Right?
where life is seen more as a rhythm, one that naturally includes cycles of intensity and rest, allowing for returning to things with maybe a fresh perspective.
Mm.
Creative habits can really thrive in that kind of rhythm.
So the crucial point becomes consistency, but maybe defined differently, even in tiny amounts, like 5 minutes counts.
Absolutely. If writing is your chosen medium, the advice is just to write something for 5 minutes. It doesn't need to be good. It doesn't need to be brilliant. It just needs to be done. Get the words down.
Yeah, the goal initially is just repetition and simply showing up,
Right.
right? Not focusing on quality or the final outcome.
Exactly. This is about building the habit without piling on the pressure to be instantly amazing or produce a masterpiece every time.
So some practical steps they suggest. Maybe
Yes.
set a reminder once a week, just once, to engage with your chosen medium.
And when you do it, consciously try not to judge what you make. Just complete the session, whatever that looks like.
Track your consistency, like, did you show up this week? Not the outcomes, not was it good?
It maybe take just a moment before and after to reflect on how you felt. Check in with yourself.
The aim is cultivating a habit that feels less like proving something to the world and more like, I don't know, returning to a valuable part of yourself.
Yeah. As the sources put it so well, small actions repeated over time leave big footprints.
But I can hear someone thinking, though, wait a minute, if there's no pressure, won't that just lead to mediocrity? Won't I just noodle around forever?
Right, that's a common fear. It assumes pressure is the only driver of excellence. But what's fascinating here is the counter-argument from the sources,
Which is?
that true sustainable excellence often arises most powerfully from, well, joyful consistency and deep immersion. When you're genuinely engaged and consistently showing up because you want to, improvement becomes less about forced effort and more like the natural consequence of just doing the work you enjoy. Kind of happens automatically over time.
That makes sense. Okay, before we wrap this up, the sources toss in a few extra practical gems for this journey of finding your medium. Little tips.
Yeah, like using the emotional afterglow as a compass. After a creative session, if you feel refreshed, maybe quietly proud, or even just have a little spark that makes you want to share what you made, even if it's simple, that's a really good sign.
Listen to that feeling.
Exactly. Also, trying to co-create with someone else can be helpful sometimes. It can clarify, do you really love the medium itself, or are you primarily energized by the social interaction around it? Both are valid, but it's good to know.
And I like this one. Reframe failed attempts or mediums you didn't stick with.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you tried filmmaking but absolutely hated the editing process, maybe you didn't hate filmmaking itself, you just discovered you really dislike editing.
Ah, okay, so the failure actually reveals something useful.
Exactly. It might point you back towards writing the scripts or maybe directing rather than the technical editing part. It clarifies your actual strengths or preferences.
That's smart. Also, let boredom speak to you. Is it that restless, irritated kind of boredom that signals a bad fit? Or is it a quiet, focused boredom that maybe means you're getting into a state of flow? Or is it an anxious boredom that's really just perfectionism rearing its head again?
Interesting distinctions.
And finally, maybe let your core values guide you a bit. If you deeply value, say, humor or justice or serenity or invention, look for creative mediums that naturally allow you to embody and express those particular traits.
So what does all this really boil down to? Finding your creative medium isn't some grand quest for a single perfect identity you have to find and then maintain forever.
No, it's much more about building momentum through gentle exploration and really self-discovery. It's about figuring out what fits your world, your energy, your time right now.
The really empowering message from these sources feels beautifully simple, actually.
It is. Start where you are, use what you have, and begin gently. Don't make it harder than it needs to be.
Your medium will likely evolve as you do. That's okay, that's normal. But the fundamental act is just returning to the creative practice again and again.
In whatever form feels accessible and resonant for you at that time, that's what truly makes you a creator, not some external validation.
And they leave us with that concrete, tiny call to action, right?
Try one thing this week. Just once. Just 5 minutes.
That's it. That's how habits start. That's how creators are born, really, from those small beginnings.
And never forget, your creativity is valid, absolutely valid, no matter how humble or small it looks in the beginning. It counts.
So here's a thought to leave you with, building on all this. If finding your medium is fundamentally about this continuous process of returning to yourself,
Hmm.
what does that imply about the deeper relationship between creativity and the very nature of identity itself? What if they aren't really separate things at all? Something to ponder.